Hello and welcome to Are You Ready for the Future? I'm your host, Joe Santana. In this program, we talk with members of the CDO Power Circle about what they're doing in their DEI practices to address the challenges and opportunities of the new normal and what they're doing to future-proof their practices and their companies. The program aims to provide DEI leaders with ideas, insights, and inspiration from our members who are thought leaders. But before we go to our discussion with our guests in this session, let's first listen to a quick word about our sponsors. I'll see you on the other side. The future. It sounds like we're talking about tomorrow, but the future of DEI is here now. It runs at a relentless fast pace, and tomorrow will be even faster than today. Let's face it, CDOs can't keep up with all of it, especially not applying the same old pre-2019 practices. That's why you need yourself and everyone in your extended DEI team to gear up and get ready to operate like a fast-running, well-oiled machine. And that's why the CDO Power Circle delivers enriching programs to develop DEI leaders at every level of your organization, from the CDO and Office of DEI members through executive sponsors for your communities to your resource group leaders. We've got you covered. Here are just a few of the benefits your membership buys you. Access to our Sharpen the Axe sessions that give top DEI strategists cutting-edge skills and techniques that they can quickly put to use. Seats for you and all your executive sponsors and all your ERG leads in the ERG Power Talk discussions with today's top thought leaders. Unlimited seats for all the members of your extended DEI team to our Summer Virtual Academy. Monthly exclusive resource letters with timely articles and videos. And seats at the annual DEI Future Foresight Summit, where you get a glimpse at what next year and those that follow will bring, so that you can get ahead of the curve in planning for tomorrow. We also invest part of your membership fee in services that give back to the DEI community while providing you and your company with powerful and significant branding. For example, our weekly newsletter that curates signals from the new normal and the future, our ERG Power Talk podcast that provides hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free development and insight to ERG leaders across the globe, and our Are You Ready for the Future series, where we provide tips to other DEI leaders to help them get ready for the new normal and future-proof their practices. The CDO Power Circle, here for you because the future is right now. Our spotlight guest today is CDO Power Circle member Erica Fletcher. She's Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Hiscox. Erica, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, Erica, if you could tell us, what does Hiscox do?
Hiscox is part of the Lloyd's syndicate, and that means that we underwrite surplus lines on behalf of Lloyd's. We're a specialty insurance provider. We insure art collections to natural disaster insurance, coverage for cybersecurity, terrorism, and kidnapping. We have a reinsurance division, and we're also a leading provider of small business insurance, which I think is what we're best known for here in the US. We're headquartered in Bermuda. We have about 3,500 employees across 14 countries in Europe, Bermuda, the UK, and the US.
Hey, any chance of getting relocated to Bermuda? That sounds very nice, especially now.
I love the business trips there.
That sounds fantastic. So, Erica, why is DEI critical to the success of your organization?
We operate in a global market, so we span, borders, cultures, generations, and ethnicity. So it's really important to us as a global organization. And the human capital that we have is really the most valuable asset we have. And what I mean by human capital is it's really that collective sum of the individual differences, the life experiences, the knowledge, how people express themselves, the capabilities and the talents that all of our people bring together. And that's what they're investing in Hiscox. And it's a really important part of our culture to acknowledge that and understand that we do have wonderful differences across all of our people. And that, I think, has really affected how successful we've been, as well as our reputation in the market.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. You know, the last couple of years, almost every organization, I'm sure yours as well, has faced a number of different changes. In fact, I was just mentioning in a conference I was in the other day that Collins Dictionary has added a new word to the dictionary, the permacrisis, meaning that you have one crisis coming and then another one comes and then another one comes. And these don't have to be major crises, but it's just a cascading effect of change upon change upon change. So one of my questions to you is, what have you done to date to address any new opportunities or challenges?
Certainly has affected the way we do business and how we view our place in the market. And we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion really makes us a better business, but we're also the leading insurer of small businesses here in the US. So we were really keen to understand what DEI means to small businesses. And so to do that, we commissioned our Hiscox Diversity and Small Business Report, which has been published this year. And we really wanted to do three things with that report. First of all, we wanted to understand the shift in mindset for small businesses. For example, there have been really an increased awareness of social issues, especially in the last couple of years. And so we wanted to know whether this thing had a lasting impact on small businesses, if at all. Second, we wanted to change the conversation around diversity and inclusion for small business owners. Take it from being a concept to really helping the market understand that there are tangible benefits when you invest in diversity and in your small business. We also felt, though, that it was a way to give back to the community. You know, we want our customers to be successful because it's good for them and it's good for us. So it just made sense. So what we did is we commissioned this research and we asked small businesses if they had had growth over the last 2 years, during the pandemic. It was really interesting what we heard back. And of course, I don't think anyone on this call will be surprised. 72% of the highly diverse businesses responded yes, that they had seen growth over the last 2 years. But when we asked the same question for those less diverse businesses, only 45% said that they had experienced growth in the last 2 years. We also found that 85% of highly diverse businesses were able to make changes and felt like they were adapting quickly to things like their marketing, their branding, and this really helped them to be more successful during the pandemic. So we found overall that diverse businesses were more adaptable, they were more resilient, and the more diverse you are as a business, the higher probability you have of being successful. We felt that was really important to share. Small business owners have got a lot of things on their plate, a lot of things that they have to think about when they're building and maintaining their business. And especially when there are really big swings in the economy and in the market, like what we've seen during the pandemic, it can be really tempting for small businesses, just like it is for large businesses, that D&I may be a luxury or something that maybe just bigger companies deal with. And I think that this report really reinforced that there's a strong business case for why it's important for small businesses to invest in diversity and inclusion. So that was something really important for us, not just looking inwardly at our employees, but also at the market that we serve. I think that, Joe, in general, I think the way companies are addressing challenges is shifting too. The old model was that good companies managed for the people. The higher ups in a company took a paternalistic approach to management, was about the business having control and influencing the right behaviors of other managers, of their employees, and they expected their employees to conform to a certain standard of behavior, right? And employees were willing to do that in exchange for pay and benefits and being successful in their career. But now I think that the influence really has been shifting to the people, right? People can develop more visibility through their social media. They can use that collective voice to develop more presence and more influence over their world. And they have an expectation that they can influence product development, whether they're an employee or a customer, right? They expect to have that influence. They expect their voice to be heard. And there are a lot of ways in which they're making that happen. So I think that it really flips that old model that corporate leadership, instead of mainly being driven by the few people at the top, what we're now seeing is that we're more influenced by people throughout the organization. And it's not just in your organization, you're being influenced by your customers as well. So the individual is influencing the business. And we're seeing more transparency and information and how we're making decisions. I think that it affects that standardization as well. I think standardization is less effective because people want more personalization and they want more flexibility and more choice. So instead of managing for the people, I think the new normal is that companies lead with the people. Leaders are focusing more on listening and collaboration, and they're really leaning into the diversity, which I think is important. So another example I wanted to share is we're using that more modern mindset here at Hiscox and how we've transitioned to a hybrid workplace. And I'm sure people are thinking, oh, hybrid workplace, that's not all that innovative. Lots of companies do it, especially now after the pandemic. So it's not radically new, but the way in which we approached it, I think, is really important. So as we transitioned back to our offices after the pandemic restrictions, we rolled out a hybrid model, which was new for us. And feedback from our employees initially was that it wasn't a good fit for everyone. So we had to pivot. And what we did in that pivot is we put the decision-making at the team level. And we tried to give employees more influence over when and where they worked. And we called it our future of work model. We did a lot to really pay attention to all the different feedback channels that we have. We've got a lot of different internal feedback channels. We've got our employee engagement survey. We had a targeted benefits survey that we had run around this time. We have a well-being survey feedback from our mental health employee resource group, which was important. And we also looked at office usage data, market workplace, wellness benchmarking, and things like that. And what it was all telling us was that our employees wanted more flexibility. They wanted ways to enhance their life at work. And they also were telling us that that in-person interaction was still really important for our culture. So we formed a future of work employee group, which was actually about 80 employees. And they provided some additional really focused and targeted feedback. They helped generate ideas. They helped validate some of the things that we were proposing. And they really reinforced that a one-size-fits-all approach was not going to work. So what we did is we empowered each team to co-create a team charter. And it was a framework for what effective hybrid working would look like for that team. And they considered things like office attendance, communication channels, their working patterns, how they would adjust if circumstances were to change, what their customer interactions were. And every team member was pulled into that process and they collaborated so that their views would really be taken into effect. And they shared what works for them, what doesn't work for them, how do they work best, what were they concerned with. And so our managers received training on how to support them and how to facilitate those conversations effectively and to make sure everyone's voice was being heard in those working sessions and how to role model the right behaviors. And I think that was really important. So we've rolled this out and the feedback has been really positive across the board. And I think that we made it a more sustainable approach because the people who were closest to the work were the ones collaborating on what the solutions would be for them. Also, to try to reinforce that sustainability, in 2023, all of our managers are going to have a hybrid working objective included in their annual goals, which we think is going to help us really reinforce maintaining this program and approach, and looking for those opportunities where they do need to evolve their team charter, and making those more agile decisions as they go. So I think that that's been a really important part of it. And then the other thing I wanted to bring out is that also through that feedback channels that we were receiving information about how our people wanted more flexibility in how they were working, but they also wanted more flexibility in how they were able to rest and recharge and take time off. So we launched a time out benefit earlier this year, where we gave all of our employees an additional 2 days off per year. So it's an annual benefit that they'll receive every year. And it's something that it's not tied to a holiday. It's not tied to a specific purpose. It's truly driven by the employees. So they can determine how they want to use those 2 Hiscox days per year, which also got great reviews, lots of really wonderful feedback from our people. And we're hearing wonderful stories around how they're using that time off, whether it's to contribute to their community or participate in a family observance or a religious holiday. We also gave our people 4 weeks of sabbatical every 5 years. So we'd had a sabbatical program in place. We revamped it so that people could take time off in a more timely manner. So every 5 years, they get an additional 4 weeks of time out through the sabbatical program, which, also has just had rave reviews. So we tried to be really responsive, tried to be agile, really listening to the feedback coming in and pivoting, to respond to it.
That's fantastic. There's so much there in terms of what your organization and you have done. One question I have on all that is that report that you talked about earlier, the one that you did with the small businesses, is that report something that's only for your clients, or is that something you plan to release at some point to the general public?
You can access it on our website. It's available to anyone who wants to access it.
What's the name of the report? And so if they go on your website, they know what to search for.
Yeah, it's the Hiscox Diversity in Small Business Report.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Thank you for that, Erica. So let me ask you this. It sounds like you have so much going on, but as we were saying before, we're living in this time of disruption and constant change. It was really interesting that there's a futurist out there who says that at the speed that we are changing and at the speed that change is speeding up, before this century is up, we will have experienced what it took 20,000 years to happen before this century started will happen in just this period of time. And the speed of change will continue to quadruple every 20 or so years. So we're speeding up and speeding up. So what are some of the things that you're seeing out there, potential opportunities or threats, maybe that you're gleaning from listening to your workforce or from looking at your clients? What are some of those things that you're seeing that you're thinking, we have to prepare for that because that's bringing the next wave of change that we need to respond to? And secondly, what steps are you taking to future-proof and address those?
One thing that we've been responding to that I'm really proud of is, of course, we've all heard bring your whole self to work. So, and that's important, and that's becoming even more and more important as we go on. And so what does that really mean? And we've looked at that. And of course, part of the answer to that is that we need to make sure that we are treating our employees as whole people. And if you look at our benefits and our wellness programs, we have really done a lot of work to examine how are we supporting our physical health and our mental health and wellness in the workplace, and how are we making sure that people have that safe space and that healthy space to be able to work. So we've invested a lot of attention into our wellness programs and our health benefits here in the US. We hold a lot of education sessions around things like menopause and men's health and nutrition and managing anxiety. And we've even held yoga classes and fitness classes, cardio classes online during the pandemic. And we've extended those, even beyond now that we're mainly back in the offices or working from home. And we have wellness fairs. We just had a wellness fair. We had jump rope competitions, lots of other activities that I think people really appreciate, having those options available to them at work, and then really raising the visibility of how important it is to maintain your physical health, but also your mental health. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our employees on that. WeMind, which is our mental health employee resource group, has really been an important part of that. They're probably our most active group that we have in our network. And they were particularly important during the pandemic in helping our employees not feel like they were doing it alone. They did a lot to gather feedback, get information out to people, and they wanted to help make sure they felt supported. And so I think that was really important to be able to leverage that group and really pivot during what was a challenging time for everybody. They shared articles, they hosted events, but they really also emphasized sharing those personal stories, which has been an important theme of ours when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion across the entire company. So they were sharing those personal stories, and they continue to share those to help destigmatize the whole topic of mental health at work. And I think that's been really important. They also have been working with our HR to remind people about the resources that we have, how to seek help, when to seek help. And I think that it's made our HR team stronger, and it's made our ERG stronger in being able to make sure that people had access and knew about the resources that were available. And that's gone a long way towards how we're trying to treat our employees as whole people, trying to make sure that we're addressing all of those things. I think another area that is shifting is the emphasis on environmental, social, and governance issues. I think that historically that was usually a secondary concern for investors. But in recent years, I think our investors have become more active, right, in considering that environmental and the social impact of their portfolios. It's a way for them to reduce systemic risk. And it's also a way for them to have more positive influence on the market. So definitely getting more and more questions around sustainability and diversity and inclusion from our investors, and how we respond to that and help them understand how we're building, I think has been really important and a really positive thing.
Yeah, those are all key things that are coming up. I hear signals about that all the time from different organizations. One of the things that you were talking about before that I also hear a lot of things about is this whole aspect of mental health, dealing with the whole person, keeping the focus on the human being, because the bottom line is we're not machines, or we're not machine parts. So my final question for you, Erica, is what is the most important piece of advice that you have for people who want to future-proof their organizations through their DEI practices?
It's a really great question. And I think it's a complicated answer. But I would highlight three things that I think are the most important. First of all, there's listening. I think it's really important to listen to your employees, to listen to the market. Listening to people is just paramount, but it has to be really intentional, and it has to be active listening. So don't just wait for feedback, ask for it, draw it out of people, ask for it constantly. Talk to different people, look at different feedback channels, the formal and the informal. I think that's really important. Don't get sucked into the trap of going to the same people or the same pattern because it's comfortable and it's easy. Really push yourself to talk to different people across the organization and check in, right? Create that space where people do feel encouraged to talk with you, and they've got that trust, that psychologically safe space, I think is important. Second, I would say learning. It's important to learn and to stay curious and to keep asking questions and ask good questions. When you learn something new, ask yourself, is this a signal? Is this something that applies to my work or to my industry? I think that reading and listening to podcasts is important. It's also important to mix up your news sources. So if you tend to stick to a source that, say, leans politically one way, mix it up. Add a blog that's written by someone who may lean in the other direction. If you mostly take in domestic news, add an international channel into the mix. Because I think if you consume those sources from a variety of different places, it's really going to help you understand the different perspectives that people have and the viewpoints. And there may be things that come up, nuances, challenges, or opportunities that you may not have otherwise encountered or been aware of. So I think that's important. But then you need to ask yourself, is it sending a signal for something that may mean something different for my industry or a different way of approaching? Is there something that maybe hasn't been apparent before now? How can you apply that solution that maybe is being done in manufacturing, and maybe with a few different components, it might apply and address a challenge that you're having in your industry? Is there a different way to approach that problem? And really playing with those ideas and getting creative. And like I said, it's about asking really good questions and just a willingness to look past the structures and the constraints that you feel like you may have. Putting those aside and really getting creative, I think, is important, and playing with those ideas. And then I would say the last thing is collaboration is really important. Individuals can come up with great ideas, but I am a firm believer that groups of people can take those ideas even farther. I'm a really big believer in collective intelligence. And so I think it's important to cultivate a really diverse group of people around you who you can brainstorm with and share ideas and news and look for those signals together. I think that's really important. That collective intelligence is really powerful. There are a lot of ways that I try to apply that to my work. The insurance industry, if you know anything about it, you'll know it's generally pretty conservative, and it's also really heavily regulated. And so, for instance, the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority over in the UK, they've been looking at what their role should be in DEI. And so they've been asking a lot of questions about, what should their role be in the workplace, and what insurance is for consumers and the products that we're offering. And so they've acknowledged that the industry as a whole really needs to make more progress, and we need to do it at a faster pace. So while Hiscox is actually ahead of the current regulation, we know that there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And so our colleagues across the insurance industry, we come together in a discussion group, and we talk about policy and regulation and reporting and governance and all of those things. But we're also wrestling with those questions around how do we build trust within the workplace, and how do we build trust with our customers regarding the products that we're offering in the market. And so it's wonderful to have that forum where we can come together and share ideas and opportunities and how have we addressed different things, because we're helping to make each other stronger across the industry. And I think that's a great investment and a wonderful thing about the DEI community in general. We invest in a lot of partnerships where, that bring those ideas together. For instance, we are one of the founding sponsors of the Black Insurance Industry Collective, which is a group that's formed to bring Black insurance professionals together to make their career opportunities stronger in the market. And we share a lot of ideas, best practices, lessons learned. There's the Insurance Industry Diversity Forum that I participate in. The CDO Power Circle certainly has been an important source of brainstorming and coming together on ideas. There's the Atlanta Diversity Manager Advocacy Group, or ADMAG, and that's Atlanta-focused professionals that come together from HR and DEI. We participate in other organizations like the Association of British Insurers, their advisory group. They have a DEI executive sponsors group, and we, in a way to give to the community and really invest in the insurance industry, we came together to create a DEI blueprint that's actually going to be published later this month. And the idea there was we wanted to really clarify and promote these DEI best practices. The insurance industry has got companies that are really, really large, and they've got companies that are only about 100 employees or so. So there's a really wide range. We're all coming at this from different places, and we really wanted to strengthen the industry and use that collective intelligence. I think that is so important to come together and collaborate and find solutions and new ways, new pathways, right? And I think that's one of the most effective ways of looking for those signals is talking to people and sharing those ideas.
Absolutely. Great advice. Erica, thanks again for joining us for this session of Are You Ready for the New Normal and the Future? You certainly have helped us think about a lot of different things that are potentially out there as opportunities and challenges that we need to address. So thanks again for joining us today.
My pleasure, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe so that you can watch all of the discussions with our insightful guests. Again, I'm your host, Joe Santana. Thank you for tuning in.